Hi there, I'm Clifford and welcome once again to reading Machiavelli's Prince. Machiavelli's Prince! Machiavelli's Prince! Okay, that's about it. Today we're looking over here, see over there, chapter 18. We're continuing the discussion of the qualities of the prince. This is basically the third chapter out of, I think it's technically it goes from 15 to 19, so 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 5 chapters. So today we're doing 18, the fourth chapter. So let's go to it. Let's go look at it. The question is, in what mode princes ought to keep faith? Fides, faith. Um, okay, the question of how much you should keep faith. That's an interesting question in that sense. Um, how praiseworthy it is for a prince to maintain faith and to live by integrity and not by cunning. Everyone understands. So everyone understands that it's praiseworthy that a prince lives by faith and by integrity and not by cunning, right? Nevertheless, one sees by experience in our times that those princes who have done great things have taken little account of faith and have known with cunning how to go around the brains of men. And in the end, they have surpassed those who founded themselves on loyalty. Well, how dark. It's a one paragraph sentence. Okay, it's one sentence. First clause is that okay, this tension. It's everyone knows. Everyone understands that it's praiseworthy for a prince to. It is praiseworthy for a prince to maintain faith and standard. Nevertheless, one sees by experience in our times, right? He's talking about princes who have done great things have taken little account of faith. Okay, comma, and have known with cunning how to go around the brains of men. In other words, how to the brains of men and how they will experience things, how to go around them, right? Confuse confuse them. Uh, 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 what is this idea of going around the brains of men? That means is outwit them, alter their reality, or make one thing look one way and rather it being the other, and deceive them in that sense, right? All these levels, and then last he says, and in the end, they have surpassed those who have founded themselves on loyalty. So therefore, that in our times, we see and through experience that the people who have done great things done so by what? Cunning, and by and have taken little account of faith and have done their events usually through great cunning, going around the brains of men, right? And these guys have done much better than those who founded themselves on loyalty, right? Not see this is the problem. Faith is not only faithfulness of God; it's also faith, keeping faith to one's fellow other men. See, faith is not merely fides, is not only our belief in or loyalty to God, but faith and loyalty to our fellow men and our communities, our political things, our princes, our these things. This is our promises. That's why he uses the word loyalty here. Um, Now we got the U, and it's always good to see what the U is because the U always is. Okay, this is the courteous second one. This is not the personal one. So this is the courteous. This is the respect. This is the the more formal one. You ought to know then that there are two kinds of fighting. one with the laws and the other force. So there's two kinds of fighting, one with laws and the other force. The first one is proper to man, the second to the beasts. But because the first proves many times to be insufficient, one needs must resort to the second. Now, let's think about this. Law and force. But laws seem to be inefficient. Now, the problem with law, Machiavelli turns law into mere words. See, words or claims, promises. But law, traditionally, in this sense, is it's basically backed up with force. That's what justice with what is our belief, what is just and right, what is the rule, with backed up with violence, force, the sword, right? That's why the statue of justice always sees the blind woman balancing with the balances, but she has a sword in her hand, right? She has the balance, blinded, so but she has the balance, those scales. So it's not the blinding is not about not being able to see the scales, but rather not preferencing one person over the other, letting us, letting our, but the scales is that this is this balance of equity and justice, and then what this the sword is the enforcement of it, right? That sword without justice without the sword is not just, right? That's that always famous line. So Machiavelli is up to something here by pairing. He should have said, okay, there's two ways. There's words, speeches, and force, right? If he said speeches, see, that's the Greek way. The Greek discussion would have been by words, rhetoric, and force, right? But rhetoric and versus laws. Speech and a law involves is speech with force. So what he does here is he says laws and force. One is human, one is beast-like. Okay, so we find that the first is the law is the law, and man's the first man or law is insufficient, and one needs to resort to the second, force. So that's a weird. The metaphor here is important. That it's that law is insufficient, and that we will have to use force. It's law. The law is insufficient. But because the first proves many times to be insufficient, the law cannot resolve things. If the law and the rules of law and the laws cannot resolve, but that's also another question. That is the problem of law. The laws themselves have a limit. The Greeks understood this. The written law is a general normal principle, and sometimes the particular circumstance the law cannot address it, and therefore they needed to have decrees and decisions by magistrates to address particular incidences where the laws do not suit. Right, that's the distinction between a decree and a law, right, and jurisprudence. Um, Machiavelli says, well, but what are decrees but acts of force? And in fact, even laws are acts in this sense. So therefore, that's the difference. I think there is this. He's playing with the problem of the limits of law, and what he's doing here is he bringing the metaphor between what was to deliberation and speech. What laws are kind of deliberative acts, words, written documents, written rules, right? We think perceive this, whereas force is just the animal, right? One is man, one is proper to man, the second to beast, right? This is what he does. Therefore, it is necessary for a prince to know well how to use the beast and the man. So, metaphor, wonderful metaphor. The metaphor is that of the beast and the man. That he must know how to use force. That if the metaphor is that force is beast, laws are man, he knows how to use know to use both the beast and the man. Right. This is this part had been covertly taught to princes, by the ancient writers who wrote that Achilles and many other ancient princes were given the care of Chadon, the centaur, so that he may look after them under his discipline. Now, what is so interesting about this is that he's saying that the ancients taught things secretly through the use of the metaphor. Okay, the metaphor of Achilles being taught by the centaur. So, what is this showing? This is showing us the problem of what we call the esoteric teaching of the ancients. That the ancients don't say this, but they imply this by the fact that Achilles has to be taught by the centaur, the Chion, the centaur. And what is that? What does the centaur teach him? Well, that's a very interesting thing, right? Note two is to reduce that, or to reduce, that is to restore or giving back. Oh, that's the wrong thing. Sorry. Bah, 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 bah. Chiron taught riding, hunting, and healing and medicine. He is also said to taught Asclepius the art of healing. See Iliad, book 10, not book 10, book 11, verse 832. Pindar's Nemo, Plutarch's Moralia. Okay, Moralia is more interesting. That he gives a discussion of that in the Moralia 1145e passage. Now, here is the influence here of what? Well, the problem here is the metaphor of Charon, the elder, who taught, literally taught hunting, riding, hunting, healing, and music. Right? That's interesting. But Machiavelli wants to teach him what this is. And what is he? He's horse. He's man and horse. Right? Man and horse. He has both natures. But his education, he educated him not in war, but of hunting, well, hunting and these things. But also, what is it? Healing too. So that's interesting that the reality of censor. I'm not sure Machiavelli sees the whole metaphor there. He's just using the metaphor. Therefore, if we look at the account of Achilles, we might get a different lesson than what Machiavelli is using it. Machiavelli is not really relying on the account of Iliad and trying to understand. He just uses the example of that example. And the question is the example really pointing? If you look at the example, does the example really say what Machiavelli does Machiavelli use the is kind of doesn't care what the actual lesson is using it for his purposes here. So that is a very interesting thing that we should look into, people studying this. What does that say versus what this is, right? But he's doing it under his discipline. To say this is to simply wish to say that one has to have as a preceptor, one who comes before you, right? One who is half beast, half man. That is, it is needful for a prince to know how to use the one and the other nature. And that one without the other is not durable. So, in other words, a man has two natures. He's saying that the prince has to know both. The man has to have, as a thing, half man, half beast. So the man has to learn how to be both beast and man, to know when the beast have both natures, how to use one and the other nature, and that one without the other, with law without the beast, man without the beast, and beast without the man, force without the law one, they're not durable in that sense. That's what he means by this in that sense. And this leads us to the next paragraph, which is the famous one, foxes. Now, the fox metaphor, the lion and fox, right? The lion and fox. Again, this is a very important metaphor because it comes from Cicero. Cicero Diophanes, if I remember correctly. Diophanes, the figures of the lion, fox, Diophanes offices, on the offices, Diophanes, book 1, 8. He purposely and again, the Offices is a book that Machiavelli. It is a, but Cicero's Offices is not really discussed to a prince. Cicero's The Offices is written to his son to provide the education that he should have gotten in the Republic. Okay, that he will not get now as the Republic is no longer, right? Well, so therefore, this idea, so therefore, Machiavelli kind of engages in Cicero here for a purpose. And in fact, we can say the whole discussion earlier, as we mentioned earlier, the liberality discussion and even the earlier, the previous things of love or fear or love, right? All of these are kind of engaging with Ciceroian and also Seneca, the Stoics, right? So let's turn to this paragraph here. Since a prince must, of necessity, know well how to use the beast, he ought to he ought of the beast to pick the fox and the lion. So if we have to know, a prince must know. The last paragraph lets us that the prince must know the beast, must know how to do the beast. So there's different beasts. The beasts are many. The beast, and then of the beasts to use, he ought of the beast pick the fox and the lion. Semicolon. For the lion cannot. Now this is interesting. Now he gets a metaphor. What is the fox? The fox is cunning, right? The fox symbolic. There's a symbolism here of the animals. The beast. Each beast is a certain symbolism, and that the two that he picks, the fox and the lion. The lion is the king of the beasts, right? Roars, power, majesty. He has power, but he has also majesty. He is majestic. He's king. He's pride. This is the lion, right? This is the lion. The lion is this majestic creature, this ruling creature, this dominating creature. The fox is a cunning creature. He is a scavenger. He's a predator scavenger who takes advantage, and hides, right, and uses it. He's, in other words, okay. So for the lion cannot defend himself from snares, right? The lion has a problem. The lion gets trapped. You trap a lion through snares, but foxes can con out of snares and traps. The fox cannot defend himself from wolves or dogs. In other words, the fox is hunted by these wolves and dogs who are small like them, and therefore they can't defend themselves. They can't stand up and fight. The images of the wolves. The wolves are those who hunt these monsters, the predators who attack you, who are vicious, who are going to viciously. They're not dogs who are loyal. The wolves are self-seeking images of this. So, of all the animal metaphors, right? We have this perception of the wolves. He brings up the wolves. Snares are human traps. Snares are traps. Snares are traps by humans or minds, and some intellect, some mind. Wolves are just forces of the wolves are just forces within the realm of the competitors with you in the environment. So, what is this? The two types. One needs to be the fox to know snares, and the lion to terrify wolves. So that the wolves, the wolves, the lion scares the wolves off. The cunningness of the fox is able to discern the snares and how to figure them out. In other words, to know snares, to know the traps, to know the cunning, right? So lions are trapped by snares. Foxes are, cannot defend themselves against wolves. In other words, then to be the fox, those who, in other words, then to be the fox to know snares, and the lion to terrify wolves. Those who rely simply on the lion do not understand this. You have to know that you have to be both, not one or the other. A prudent lord, therefore cannot nor ought he observe faith with such when such observance turns against him, and the causes which made him give his promise are extinguished. So notice the shift in time. All of a sudden, we had this discussion, then all of a sudden we get this radical shift in the paragraph. That is, after discussing the question of knowing the fox and knowing the fox and the lion, and the needing of this and that to rely on the lion, now they rely on the prideful, the prideful, the powerful, the majestic. That this is mistake, and that mistake is the keeping one's word, observing faith. This is what he talks about. The raises the prudent lord cannot be one who observes faith. The metaphor of the Lord, the idea of the lion is loyal, always faithful, right? That's the persistence of the lion, right? But he's trapped by traps, and here this is a trap. That is what, that he should not keep promises, that he ought, therefore can a prudent law cannot, nor ought he, observe faith when such observers turn against him, don't harm them, and the causes which which made him give his promise are extinguished. In other words, the promise that we gave a man, that they're gone. The reason for that promise is gone. The reason or cause of that promise is gone, and that to keep that promise is to harm you. Now, you don't keep that. A prudent person would not keep that. And if all men were good, in other words, if all men were good, this precept would not be good. But since they are wicked and would not be faithful to you, again, the you here, I think, is the shift of you. Second person familiar. It's a switch. He switches the you from a cordial, formal you to a very the informal you. The personal you, the intimate you, right? Would not be faithful to you. You also do not have to be faithful to them. In other words, this is a very interesting point that men are not faithless. In other words, if they were all good, this would be not good. But since they are wicked and would not be faithful to you, you don't have to be faithful to them. Nor does a prince ever lack legitimate causes to color his inobservance. In other words, there's lots of legitimate causes to shade or color the inobservance, the not keeping of faith. Of this, one could give infinite modern examples, in other words, and show how many peace treaties and how many promises have been of no effect and made vain by the infidelity of princes. And those who have known best how to use the fox have turned out the best, right? Cunning. That's the danger. This is the problem. Those who promise things. This is the whole problem. People promise things, but they promise and people believe them in their promise. But what happens when it's no longer in their interest? They're not going to keep the prince. The interest will not. In fact, this is one of the big mistakes that happened with Ukraine. Ukraine, when they gave up their nuclear arms in the 90s, in the Budapest Memorandum, promises of security guarantees by England, America, and Russia, disarmed themselves, and then they were relying on the arms of others to protect them. And then when Russia decided to go yum 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 on them, the Americans and the British were like, "Oh, we can't go to war. It's not our interest." So the Ukrainians were kind of like, and then what happens is, oh, but then we'll give you a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of that. Okay, I argued the Americans should have returned, given the Ukrainians 50 to 60 Tomahawk missiles with nuclear warheads. Okay, yes, we promised you. We took away your nukes. Now, okay, we're not going to defend. We're not keeping our promises. But no one wants to do that, right? So here's the problem of this is the point that Machiavelli talked about, that you can't trust people who trust this, and this actually even hits home earlier chapters about relying on others, putting your faith in others. Mistake. um, and he says those who have know how to use the fox turned out best in the modern world, he says, but it is necessary but it is necessary to this nature to know how to color it. Therefore, even the color, right? If you're going to be using the fox, you have to color it, right? Because why? That if the fox is attacked by someone bigger than powerful, it can't defend itself. So you need to, in other words, it is necessary to this nature to know how to color it, to how to make it look like, and to be a great hypocrite and deceiver, and to be a great hypocrite and deceiver. And men are so simple and so obedient to present necessity that he who deceives will always find one who lets himself be deceived. In other words, he's saying, okay, you need to be a great hypocrite and deceiver. You have to color it. You can't just be it. Why? Because men are so simple and obedient to the present necessity of things that he who deceives in other words, one who deceives will always find a new victim, he says, someone else who will let himself be deceived. Because why are we deceived? Because we look for the present, we pay attention, we are simple. Most people are simple, and the second thing is they look for their present necessity. They focus, they narrow on their immediate needs. Now Machiavelli switch. This is like, I think, what is it? 2, 3. Okay, I'm going too far. Hold on. I hate going too far. Yes, I went too far. This goes us, the next paragraph leads us, is it the fourth? I think it's the fourth paragraph. Yeah, it's the fourth paragraph. It leads us to this Alexander the Sixth. I do not. It was shocking. Okay, yeah, this is going to be a shock. This is Machiavelli is always shocking you, saying the shocking thing. I do not wish to be silent about one of these recent examples. He's going to give a recent example. Who he gives? The Pope. Alexander the Sixth never did anything else, and he never thought about anything else but how to deceive men. And he always found a subject for his practice. In other words, the Pope is only concerned. Pope Alexander never was only concerned about deceiving men, and he always found a new subject for his practice. Right, and there was never a man who was more efficacious and um, I can never get this right. Asseverating. That means, asseverating means kind of like not keep, efficacious means very, very hard to negotiate, backing away from, things like that, and making promises, but not, you know, going out of this. Right. This is, he's always tough to do this. Oh, we had a visitor who insisted on moving the fan. I don't blame her because it's a little better now. Um, What about this prince? What about Alexander? He was efficacious means effective, right? He was successful in getting what he wanted, and asseverating means what? Making pronounces, making great pronounces. So he was more efficacious getting what he wants in his pronouncements of things. Uh, 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 um, or with greater oaths affirmed a thing. Make all these great oaths and promises. So this is a form of giving these statements. Who observed, who less observed his faith. In other words, there's never a man who was most efficacious and making promises or pronouncements, um, or with greater oaths affirmed a thing, who less observed his faith in that sense. Saying he's basically he made all these made these observations, made these claims, but then was completely less observed faith. Nevertheless, his deceptions always succeeded at his will, because he knew well this part of the world. In other words, he understood this lying, right? The deception. He always got his deceptions always succeeded at his will, because he knew this part of the world. Which is quite opposite. There's the holy man. The holy man would be his faith, really knowing faithfulness. But here, this is deceptions. Now, it is not necessary then for a prince to have, in fact, all the qualities written above, right? All those qualities upstairs. So not only things. In other words, what qualities that of faithfulness, obedience, or this one only presented here, or all this chapter so far, right? But it is indeed necessary to appear to have them. So it's not necessary to have all the qualities written above, but only to appear to have them. So the being versus seeming, right? I shall rather dare to say this. Now this is he's going to say, I shall rather dare to say this, that having them and observing them always, they are harmful. But in appearing to have them, they are useful. Okay? So he's going to go back to the original thing. He's not going to go to certain things. He says, so having them and always having them and observing them is always harmful. But appearing to have them, they're useful. So, as it appears to be full of pity, faithful, human, open, religious, and so on, but with one mind constructed in such a mode that when the need not be arises, you can and know how to change to the contrary. So therefore, remember, you go back. Let's go back here for a second. Full of pity, faithful, human, open, religious, and so on. Right? These good qualities. You can appear to have them, but okay. So, but of the mind construct, constructed or constituted? Yeah, constructed in such a mode that when the need arises, when necessity, when the need, not just when you want to, it's need. It's not because I want it, it's because I must do it. Need arises, you can and know how to change the contract. And this has to be understood that a prince, especially a new prince, cannot observe all those things by which men are held to be good, for they are often necessitated to work against faith, against charity, against humanity, against religion, and in order to maintain the state. In other words, okay, the new prince, especially so a prince and especially a new prince, sometimes they cannot observe all those good things because sometimes in order to maintain a state, you must work against faith. You must break faith. Okay, it goes back to that first example where the faith is that if I keep the promise, the reason for the promise I made, the reason why this promise was made no longer exists, and if I keep this promise, my state is harmed. Okay, no, the condition changed, and therefore this is not the case of this, right? Second is the charity. There's charity, giving things to that. No, I'm not going to give. I'm not going to be liberal in that sense. Against humanity, I can do some bad things. Against religion, okay, in order to maintain the state, and therefore, now next sentence of this paragraph, and therefore, comma, it is needful that he must have a mind so disposed that he can turn as the winds of fortune and the variations of things command him. So just notice, whoa, whoa, whoa. In other words, he must respond to his condition. In other words, the winds of fortune uh, and the variations of things. These are the change. This is the environment. This is the environment that we live in. Fortune affects us, and the varieties of things, the variations of things. That these things command us in that sense. And therefore I need. In other words, in order to get the good, the securing the state, securing the people, securing their benefit, their good, what I need must do, I must do it, and including it is working against those things, right? Against faith, charity, humanity, and religion. Command him, semicolon, and as that had been said above, not to depart from the good, if he is able, but to know how to enter the bad when necessitated to do so. So he's not. He shouldn't be bad. In other words, you don't depart from the good. You don't know. You don't have to. You should always try to appear to be good. Not necessarily be good, but at least appear to be good in that sense. Try to be good. Try to be good, but know when the situation requires. But know how to enter the bad when necessitated to. Again, this is different. The misunderstanding of Machiavelli is that it's not that you do it because you want to do it. Oh yeah, I do it. This is I do it because my whim wants me to have fun. I'm gonna be bad now. I'm bored. I want to fuck around. Like that's the problem with a lot of some of the bad guy stories. The bad guys sometimes act irrationally. Sometimes it is usually what destroys a bad guy is he's being false to himself. He does eat bad things not because he's forced to do them, but because he decides to. He gets. It gives him kicks, or it's the easy option, right? He does it not because he must do it, but because he's too lazy. See, that's the difference. The good prince is not going to do the bad things because there's easier. There's more. It's the easiest way. No, it's because this is what must be done. Must. It's necessitated. Doing bad is necessitated to achieve the good, to achieve the good you want. This is the only way you get it. The other way leads to disaster. Not doing it leads to disaster. It's not that, well, there's two options that both will lead to good. In that case, if this leads to good, choose that. Okay, maybe you don't. How about this? That you get little more good if you're bad. No. Are you forced to do this? No. Then maybe it's not that you don't get no good, but it's what about the question then becomes, what happens if the good is only marginally better? Hmm. Would you be blamed for not getting? Would it be shameful and bad not to get that little less of the good thing? Would people know that little less was gotten? You're not. You're not. In other words, it's not necessity that you get that much better. Okay, so let's think about this for a second. And now this leads us to the ultimate paragraph. A prince then ought to take great care that nothing goes out of his mouth, which is not full of the five qualities written above. In other words, those five qualities. Remember those five. Um, he needs to have these five qualities. Nothing out of his mouth that comes out of these four qualities. That he appears to be. So what he says needs to appear to be what he appears to be. When one sees him and hears him, all piety, all faith, all integrity, all humanity, and all religion. Now, what is interesting, remember this previous thing about the mode? I want to think about that for a second because it's four things, not five. What is missing? What is missing is integrity. In other words, faith, charity, okay, let's go look at this. Pity, faithfulness, human, open, religion, right? That's the first five. So pity, faithful, human, open, religion, right? Five, then four here, four opposites, right? Things that you have to go or do against, right? And then here he says, well, okay, we should be the five qualities. But then his account of the five qualities: all pity, all faith, all integrity, all humanity, and all religion. So what is that distinct? So what's missing here is integrity from these, right? And what is else missing? What is else missing is open. Open. Open, which was humanity, was switched, and these things are switched. So there's a game going on with these things. He switches them. He plays them around. So when he appeared, one see and hear him, all pity, all faith, all integrity, all humanity, and religion. Nothing is more necessary than to have the last quality. For men judge more by the eyes than by the hands, because it is given to everyone that they see, but few can touch. Now, this is the great note in de Alvarez, and I think this is very important, this metaphor. Um, this is the story of Emile. In the introduction of The Prince, de Alvarez talks about the Emile, um, and this idea of seeing and touching. And the Emile is the case where the tutor shows the stick, and the stick is the stick under the water looks bent, and the stick above the water is straight. But when he touches it, it's straight, but under the water it looks bent, right? Seeing can deception. A famous, the infamous put your fingers together, look straight at it, and you see a little sausage in the middle, right? The appearance, the sight deceives. Touching is more truthful, less deceptive than seeing. In fact, that's the we have to understand that of the senses, everything is rudimentarily touch. All the senses. You say smelling. How's that touch? Well, the hairs are being touched by the chemicals. The nose, the the nose, nostrils, and the hairs on the nose. The senses of theirs is that the odors come across it, and the chemicals and other things touch the skin, and it create goes into the brain, and the brain says, "Oh," it creates the image of it distinguishes that smell, right? Um, the hearing, same thing. The hearing goes to the eardrum, and it touches these little individual sensors. And same the eyes. How the eyes light bouncing off the retina. That then it converts the data into seeing. Seeing is the more complex science, and because a sense system, and because it's so complex, it's easily deceived, right? And he has this wonderful line. that he says, for men universally judge more by the eyes than the hands, because it is given to everyone that they can see, but few can touch. Everyone sees what you seem to be, but few touch what you are. And those few will not dare oppose themselves to the opinion of the many, who has the majesty of the state defending them. Okay? So again, this is interesting. The few, the many. The few will be able to touch. Few, in other words, the most people will see. The many will see. Seeing and believing are connected. Why? Seeing is also inexact. Seeing can deceive. Sight, this, because illusions, right? Illusions. Our sight is imperfect. Our information sees things, and we may not understand them. It's easy to deceive sight. Touching is not easy to deceive, and because the problem, but there's only few get the touch. Again, but the problem here is the many and the few. Well, the many not only has the many can beat up the few, the many also has the majesty of the state to defend them. The many who have the majesty of the state defending them. In other words, the few will not dare oppose themselves to the opinion of the many. In other words, the people are seeing and believing. Believing is opinion. And this is something I have to always wanted to say, but opinion is what the whole. I was watching a debate, an online thing about this. I forget his name. This old English mathematician who's a Christian. He does a very good job. I think he's a Christian defender of Christianity, but against atheists. And he's right that this is the problem. The atheists who think science is no, science does not escape belief. All knowledge rests on opinion, belief. Sorry, Charlie. We believe certain things. We test them. Our evidence that goes differently. Yes, science does, and then in other words, the scientific approach looks at experience and measures them and tries to understand it. And therefore, we don't get answers. We only figure out processes and get tentative answers. Right? We don't. We just it's in other words true at this moment. We can't know absolute truth in this sense. We can only have a sense of truth in terms of what we can discern from the information we get at this moment. In other words, until something shows that this is not true, it's true for now, right? This is what science does. Science tests the validity of claims. Uh, hypotheses. This is a belief. I make an assertion. I then see I test that assertion against experience, reality, or phenomena, and then whether is it true, is it false, does it confirm, or does it not turn out to be so? Okay, this is the nature of belief. So belief is not something This is why Machiavelli says all belief, and all society itself, laws rest on belief. Belief. I'm sorry, this is the whole point. This is the whole point of that famous discussion in Plato's Republic of the cave, right? The cave is the realm of belief. The city is the realm. The cave is a metaphor for the city that rests upon belief. Laws are belief. What a belief? Their laws are basically claims of belief. Doxa about what? Doxa about belief about what is just. It is the authoritative or ruling opinion or belief about the orthodoxy, about the just, that is backed up with laws backed up with coercion, violence, force of the state. Hence, the majesty, the belief of the many is what? Backed up with the majesty of the state, defending them, the laws. And therefore, the few will not, the few who can touch, who can really know, they're not going to say. They're not going to say. They're going to be a little circumspect. That's why you can deceive people in this sense. This is the perception of what. This is why the great princes and rulers. In other words, what? Now, this is that line. And with respect to all human action, and especially those of princes, where there is no judge to whom to appeal. One looks to the end. What? In other words, in respect to all human actions, and especially that of princes, where there is no judge who you can appeal, one looks to the end of what you want, the telos, the end, what you're trying to do, the goal, the result, the end, the purpose of what you're doing things. And if there's no judge to appeal, you care more for the result, not for the question of whether it's fair or not, or just or not, right? No appeal. The end result. Let a prince then win and maintain the state. And means will always be judged honorable and be praised by everyone. In other words, let the prince win, and this is the means will always be judged honorable and will be praised by everyone. I'll get to this now. For the vulgar are always taken by the appearances and outcomes of a thing. And the world, and in this world, there is no one but the vulgar. In other words, the vulgar are always deceived by what do you call the appearances of things and the outcomes. And in this world, there is no one but the vulgar. So that therefore that it will be honorable. It will always be the means that brings the end will always be what is what? Winning and maintaining the state. Not any means justify any ends, or any ends justify any means. It's the best ends justify the means. In other words, now this is where de Alvarez's note goes into play, I think. This is the notorious passage often cited as end justifying the means. The passage, of course, does not quite say that. He says that the people will praise, in other words, that here is that the great end of what? Winning the state and maintaining the state will always be judged honorable and praised by everyone. Why? Why? Before the vulgar are always taken by the appearance of a thing. Now, let a prince win the state. The means will always be judged honorable. In other words, if the means help you achieve the end, the desired end, it has to be a noble end, then it'll be praised. Otherwise, it won't, right? If the means don't achieve you the end you want, then so therefore that's what he says about ends, why the end matters. And that's because the world is filled with the vulgar, and they're taken by the appearances and the outcomes, the results of things, of a thing. And in this world, there's no one but the vulgar. The few have no place. The few who can touch and can know, who are not vulgar, have no place, while the many have a great number of places upon which they may perch. Okay, that's even interesting. This metaphor here is actually even very shocking. That the few have no place. One should imagine a bird coop. Right? Again, this is the birds almost. Aristophanes played the birds, the bird coop, where the rare and exotic birds are crowded off on the perches. Right, the rare birds and the birds who are great, they're kind of pushed off. They have no place to go. The many who are numerous and vulgar, they're control of everything. In other words, they have no place, while the many have a great number of places to perch. A certain present-day prince, whom it is not good to name, never preaches anything but peace and faith, but is the greatest enemy of one and the other, and one as well as the other. If he had observed them, would have many times taken away from him his reputation or his state. In other words, who's that? That's Ferdinand. Ferdinand the Catholic, right? De Alvarez makes it in the note clearly aiming at Ferdinand, right? Ferdinand of Spain, Ferdinand the Catholic. Particularly see chapter 21, he says, but he discusses Ferdinand. This is always the big pain of this thing. So we ended on this conception of we get the metaphor of the means justify the ends justify the means. Yes, but it doesn't really say that. It implies that yes, the end matters for the vulgar. The vulgar won't. In the eyes of the many, they concern only themselves with what the the results, the outcomes, the outcome of a thing, the appearance and the outcome of a thing. And that in this world, there's no one but the vulgar, right? And therefore, what happens is that what happens? Well, they will always respect. Will always be what the means will always be judged honorable. The means that achieve you win, maintain the state, secure the state. So, and particularly if there's no judge who can appeal to those things, respect to human action, and especially those of princes, where there is no judge to whom to appeal. One looks to the end, the goals. What are you trying to do? And judge the goal in that sense. They judge the goals. People, the many who look at this will look at the end. Is it worth doing? There's no judge that they can appeal to. Okay, and that the only appeal is to the many vulgar. That is that whole point. The many vulgar who's going to dominate. There's no higher court that the few can appoint. Those who oppose the decision can go to. So we'll end here. This has been not that long chapter, but we talked about it a little longer too much. We had too many breaks. We had too many interruptions. Put your comments and questions, and please, I'll respond to them when I see them. Next, but not last of all, if you like the video, please hit the like button. It helps the algorithm. Thumbs up, like button. If you want to not share it far and wide. Share it on your social media. Share it to your friends. And if you've not subscribed, please consider subscribing. Let's grow the channel. Helping the algorithm grow. Liking and sharing helps the algorithm get more. It moves our attention, so people searching this will find it more likely to find things like this. I'm looking for the prince, or something like that. That they come to attention of these things. Another thing you can do is if you subscribe, encourage others to subscribe. Let's grow the channel some. I help them check out things. You can always go check out all the other videos that I've done so far in our couple of years now doing this. Another thing you can do is if you didn't like it, you can always thumbs down, but you can say why in the comments. Explain what the problem was, and maybe people can learn from it. Another thing, I apologize for the fans, but the weather here, if we don't have I'm hoping the fan noise is not making it that loud. You can follow me on social media, the social media links. You want to know more about me as a scholar, want to know more about my scholarship, and check out my scholarship, check out the academic social media links below the social media links. And last but not least, if you want to contribute to what I do, financially that is, you can do so by being a patron or a subscriber to Unsubscribestar or Patreon, either one of those two places. It would help. It would be a nice thing to have if you can do it. It helps defer costs and make life a little easier. Another thing you can do is, if you want to do another way you can do so, is by buying one of my books. Below the two URLs to subscribe to on Patreon, there is a list of books that I've written that are currently available. You can order these through local bookstore if you want to. You can do so, or through an online distributor like Amazon, Barnes and Noble, or Libris, or whatever book depository, who name it, whatever, and then or else through the publishers directly. Well, that's it. The next time we finish up the discussion of characterization. We're looking at chapter 19. We'll see you then. Take care and have a great day.